Bob. Okay, wait. Okay.
I'd like to just push back, Rick, just on one comment that you made. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think before you get all of your students to read the newspapers, you got to teach them to read. And there's a whole vast community in this country who graduate from high school without the ability to read, who've never read a book, and many who drop out of high school. And so we've got some fundamental problems. But I want to really associate myself with Diane Ravitch's comments. She mentioned Robert Reich, who's chairman of my board, Common Cause, who just wrote a really important book called Aftershock. And I think it's important for all of us to recognize the disparity between those at the top end of the economic scale and those at the bottom. We're always overlooking the working poor and the poor. And I would hope as we begin to look for solutions to the problems of civics, of citizenship, that we look at the grassroots, at the core issues of teaching young people about the quality of life. Here are some specific things I'd like to see. One will make you laugh, and that is I'd like to see every baby born in this country to be registered to vote at birth. And then at age 18, I'd like to have every 18-year-old get the same ceremony that we give immigrants, where someone comes and talks about their civic responsibility, where they're given a copy of the Constitution, maybe even a flag, but we move the importance of voting up in their minds. As someone pointed out, very few of our citizens actually vote. And if 80 and 90% of our people voted, I think our outcomes might be different, but our ownership of democracy would also be different. I'd also want to suggest that not only do we have to work at the early end of teaching young people about civilization and civics and citizenship, but let's also recognize that we don't do a very good job with 65 to 100-year-olds. The fastest growing age group by percentage of population are those over the age of 100. The next fastest growing age group are those over the age of 85. Let's institute a new type of domestic Peace Corps where we put those persons to work building bridges with some of our young people and giving them hope. And finally, I'd suggest that we think about some second chance colleges. Think of how many young people flunk out their first year in college. Think of how many young persons do poorly on their college board scores. We throw them away without recognizing that they have value in our society. I'd like to see us honor those colleges and universities that take those students and reclaim them, give them hope for the future. I think as we close out this debate, and thank you, Richard, for getting us together, it might be helpful to re-listen to what President Obama said just last week at the memorial service. Remember, as he stood before the memorial crowd and focused on Christina Taylor Greene, this is what he said. "That's what I believe, in part because that's what a child like Christina believed. Imagine, here was a young girl who was just becoming aware of our democracy, just beginning to understand the obligations of citizenship, just starting to glimpse the fact that someday she too might play a part in shaping the nation's future. She had been elected to her student council. She saw public service as something exciting, something hopeful. She was off to meet her congresswoman, someone she was sure was good and important and might be a role model. She saw all this through the eyes of a child, undimmed by the cynicism of vitriol that we adults all too often just take for granted. I want to live up to her expectations. I want democracy to be as good as she imagined it. All of us, we should do everything we can to make sure this country lives up to our children's expectations." Let's also remember, in closing, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "You and I will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of good people." If we're going to address this issue of citizenship and civic education, average, ordinary citizens need to stand up, speak out, and take back the responsibility of being the leaders we have been waiting for.
Thank you very much. We have been throughout this entire 2 hours, we've received dozens and dozens of comments from the web. Just want to add a few, and then we have a comment from the audience in San Diego. Randy Schwenkel from Chicago, Illinois, talks about the role of student journalism and building journalism courses and revitalizing scholastic journalism to, again, craft democratic learning through that method. Edward Rikers from Linden, Utah, talks about how we need to strike a balance with No Child Left Behind, because unfortunately that has skewed things to science and math and further diverted resources from civics. Ellison Horn, who is with us in the University of San Diego, is a person involved with the United Way up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one of the things we've all kind of alluded to is that there are green shoots out there, and how do we collect those and share those to inspire others? So if Ellison, if you're ready, if you could speak a little bit about your program in San Francisco Bay.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you. Scott's been really the backbone behind getting this whole event together for us today, and Richard was so smart to put Scott in that position. Thank you for giving me the time to be able to speak to you. I just wanted to say, first of all, that today C-SPAN is broadcasting the Dwight Eisenhower's farewell address. And I really encourage you to see it or read it, because Eisenhower, more than any other president, took the military budget down to a scale that really supported the infrastructure, the education, healthcare in this country, unlike any other president that we've known. And, you know, the idea was to benefit us. You look at this room here. Look at how many solutions that there are to the struggles that we're going through every day. But how often do we have the opportunity to share the human innovation and creativity that is right here among us? Celebrating Solutions, and I'll just read from this. Celebrating Solutions is a communication ecosystem combining television, radio, print media, telephony, and the internet to create a new genre of media for public discourse and action. The goals are to promote and stimulate the human capacity for solving problems, to reveal the dynamics and the resources essential to arriving at solutions, encouraging cross-fertilization, so we're not reinventing the wheel all the time, to adopt and adapt solutions so that they work. One solution that works in one area can work in another area. To nurture an environment that allows the greatest number of people to engage, discover, and share solutions wherever they may be needed, at home or around the world. So the mission of Celebrating Solutions is to cultivate a solutions ecology. That's what we need. We need a system, just like we get the weather report and we get the sports report. You know, what about what we're doing in terms of solving problems, the techniques and approaches that are being applied to solving problems? We need a steady diet of that every day, kids and grown-ups. So I just wanted I'll close my presentation here just by saying, first of all, to acknowledge Richard Dreyfuss is not only talking the talk, but by today, of course, walking the walk. But I just want to tell you my own personal story. When I reached out to Richard Dreyfuss, we got to talking and found out how much we had in common. He came to my home. We broke bread together. And he talked about his passion, civics. And I shared with him my passion around civic engagement. And we agreed that, you know, there's a time coming that we're going to be working together. And I'm really looking forward to that, Richard. That the idea of the human capacity for taking care of each other is right here with us. And we just need the opportunity to be able to do it. And I'm just close with Bob Edgar. This may resonate with you. These are words by John Gardner, who was the Secretary of Health, Education and Welfare under the Johnson administration and the founder of Common Cause. He states, "The citizen can bring our political and governmental institutions back to life, make them responsive and accountable, and keep them honest. No one else can." Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ellison. We were getting more online comments. Susan Hall from Vista, California talks about how we should bring our senior citizens into the classroom to do oral history and share and do intergenerational sharing. So again, we've gotten many, many great comments which we will be posting and processing in the weeks ahead. One thing that comes through on about 24 of the comments is, what can some of our audience do starting today to make things better? And would any one of the panelists like to take Bob?
Run for school board.
For school board.
I think it's important to recognize that those offices often don't have average ordinary citizens who care about these issues running and stepping forward. I think it's important. I got elected to Congress at age 31, 1 year after getting mad at Richard Nixon for firing Archibald Cox. And I got elected in the most Republican district in the nation to have a Democratic congressperson. But I quickly realized that one of the most important places where people can make a contribution is at the local level, and I'd encourage them to think about their school districts and their school boards and make sure that the quality of those school boards are improved and committed to this civic education.
Okay. Yeah.
Have a conversation with your children at dinner at least 2-3 times a week about a subject that involves their life and their community relating to civics.
Okay. John?
Picking up on something Diane Ravitch said, teaching our young people and also others of us the dangers of authoritarian and totalitarian societies. Lech Walesa, his first extended tour of the U.S. after the fall of communism, he told us at the Wall Street Journal, "You have never been conquered. You have never known occupation. You therefore can't appreciate freedom and democracy as much as we do who lost it." He said, "That is why you're always in danger of, like the frog in the pan of water, who the temperature is turned up a degree at a time, and eventually, when the frog realizes he's in peril, it's too late because he's cooked." And that's the danger we have in this country. We've had 230 years of success, and that has inured us and perhaps allowed us not to appreciate what we have.